Bianca inherited an antique mirror from her late grandmother's estate. The mirror was an exquisite piece, framed in ornate dark mahogany, with intricate carvings that seemed to dance in the dim light of the room. Bianca was immediately captivated by its beauty and placed it in her bedroom, against the wall, facing her bed. The mirror served as an exquisite centerpiece, enhancing the aesthetic appeal of Emily's bedroom. During the day, sunlight would filter through the window, casting a warm and inviting glow upon the mirror's surface. The reflected light would dance around the room, creating a soft ambience. The mirror gave the room a sense of vibrancy and life, creating a welcoming and comforting atmosphere. Additionally, the mirror served a functional purpose. Bianca would often use it to admire herself as she prepared for the day or tended to her nighttime routine. It became a source of confidence and self-assurance, reflecting her beauty and reflecting the positive image she held of herself. The mirror seemed to hold a mysterious allure, inviting curiosity and admiration. It was a cherished addition to Emily's bedroom, infusing the space with an air of elegance and sophistication. One night, as she lay in bed, Bianca could not help but feel a strange sense of unease. She glanced at the mirror, catching her own reflection staring back at her. There was something unsettling about it, a flicker of darkness in her eyes that she had never noticed before. Shaking off her unease as mere fatigue, she turned away and eventually was able to fall asleep. As the days passed, Bianca's unease grew. She found herself stealing glances at the mirror more often, noticing peculiar details in her reflection. Sometimes her reflection would smile wickedly, its lips curling into a malevolent grin, only to disappear when she looked directly at it. Other times, her reflection would mimic her movements, but with a disturbing delay, as if mocking her. The reflections in the mirror were inconsistent, causing Bianca to question her insanity, as if her mind was in a battle between reality and fantasy. There were times when she would look into the mirror and her reflection was normal and unchanging. Other times her reflection would transform into a sinister version of herself, with a wide, unnaturally wide grin stretching across its face. The teeth would be sharp and jagged, and the eyes would gleam with a predatory hunger. It would watch her with a sinister gaze, seemingly relishing in her fear and discomfort. The reflections in the mirror intensified. One evening, as she was getting herself ready for a night out with friends, she began walking past the mirror. She wanted to avoid looking at the mirror, but she could not resist. Bianca decided to take a quick glimpse at the mirror, and as soon as her eyes gazed upon it, the mirror seemed to take over her body. Her eyes were frozen, staring at the mirror, and she was unable to move her body. Bianca attempted to break free from the mirror's spell, but she was unable to do so. As she stood frozen, eyes wide, staring at the mirror, her reflection began to slowly decay before her eyes. The once smooth and supple skin began to crack and peel, revealing raw, rotting flesh beneath. Deep, festering wounds marred her reflection's face, with exposed muscles and tendons visible in places. The wounds would leak a thick, putrid liquid, dripping slowly down the reflection's distorted features. The decay did not stop at the skin. Bianca's hair began to lose its luster and vitality, thinning and falling out in clumps. The remaining strands would become brittle, turning gray and matted with filth. The reflection of her scalp showed signs of decomposition, with patches of exposed, decomposing flesh peeking through the thinning hair. Her eyes were extremely unsettling as they became cloudy and lifeless. She watched in horror as her reflection's eyes began to disintegrate, leaving empty black sockets that seemed to swallow the light. It was as if her reflection had been stripped of all sight and soul, leaving behind a haunting emptiness. As the decay progressed, a foul stench would emanate from the mirror, filling the room with a putrid odor of decomposition and decay. The smell was so overwhelming that Bianca wanted to cover her nose and mouth. desperate to escape the sickening scent that seemed to cling to her very being. But her body remained motionless, forcing her to bear the suffocating scent. Bianca continued to stare at her decaying reflection, both horrified and unable to tear her gaze away. As her body reflection continued to decompose, the wide, sinister smile remained on its face. Bianca's body was suddenly thrust backward onto the floor, as if an invisible sinister force pushed her. Bianca landed on her back, hitting her head on the floor, causing her to temporarily lose consciousness. Moments later, Bianca awakened and opened her eyes. Still lying on the floor on her back, she gazed up towards the ceiling. She used her hands to raise herself into a sitting position. Without thinking, she looked at the mirror, and her reflection had returned to normal. Bianca stood up and ran out of her bedroom, closing the door behind her to entrap the mirror and its images inside. Bianca was happy she was meeting with friends because she needed to get away from her house. She needed to free her mind and regain a sense of normality. Bianca returned home around 3 a.m. She had a great night in the town with her friends and was ready to get a few hours of sleep. When she began approaching her bedroom, reality kicked in when she saw the door to her room closed. She never closed her bedroom door, but remembered why she did so before she quickly left her home. Bianca was too tired and inebriated to allow the mirror to prevent her from getting much-needed sleep. Without hesitation, Bianca opened the door to her bedroom and walked past the mirror without looking in its direction. She entered her bathroom and took a quick shower, and she proceeded straight to her bed. As Bianca lay in her bed, she heard a soft whisper as she was drifting into a sleep. The whisper carried on the wind from deep within the mirror. The whispering voice was faint and barely audible, but spoke in a raspy tone that sent shivers down her spine.
Come closer.
It beckoned.
Set me free.
Bianca's heart raced as she fought the urge to comply with the voice's sinister request. The whispers grew louder, more urgent, filling her ears until they echoed through her mind. Unable to resist any longer, Bianca slowly got out of her bed as if her body was under the control of an evil presence, and she approached the mirror. Her hands trembled as she involuntarily reached out, her fingertips grazing the cool surface of the mirror. Suddenly, the mirror erupted in a blinding flash of light, engulfing the room in an ethereal glow. When the light subsided, Bianca found herself standing in a different place, a twisted reflection of her own room. Everything was distorted as if she had stepped into a nightmare. Shadows eerily moved amongst the walls, whispering secrets that she could not comprehend. In the center of the distorted madness stood a terrifying figure that could only exist in nightmares. The figure stepped forward, its form becoming more solid and more realistic. Bianca could now see the haggard lines etched upon its face, the empty sockets where eyes should have been. It reached out a skeletal hand, beckoning her closer. She tried to resist the force that was pulling her body towards the hideous figure, but she was no match. As her body was pulled towards the figure, Bianca felt her own reflection slipping away, fading into nothingness. She was merging with the twisted reflection of herself, becoming a part of the darkness that dwelled within the mirror. Bianca's room was empty. The mirror stood silently. There was no trace of Bianca. Time passed, and her disappearance remained a mystery. Some say that if you stand before that very mirror at midnight, you can still hear the whispers and catch a glimpse of Bianca's tormented soul trapped within the depths of its darkness.